It's been 6 years since Dave Matthews Band released a studio album. Does this legendary live act have anything new to say on their 2018 comeback? My review of Come Tomorrow is coming today, right now in fact, on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. What can I say about the Dave Matthews Band? Well, at one time, maybe 15 years ago, I might have called them one of my favorite bands. In fact, they're one of just 20 acts in this huge collection back here that actually gets their own name tag on a shelf. To be fair, that honor has more to do with volume, with number of discs that I own by an artist, and in the case of the Dave Matthews Band, that's almost 40 discs, which is even more remarkable when you consider the fact that their new release, Come Tomorrow, is just their 10th studio album. I've got about 3 times as many live discs by the band, and as pretty much any fan knows, the Dave Matthews Band is truly in their element when they play live. I've only seen them in concert once, but I still think that their live recordings often have more energy and vitality than their studio albums. All that being said, it's also fair to say that the band are no longer the hit makers that they were in their prime during the mid to late 90s. They've traded Billboard's Hot 100 chart for the adult alternative chart, where they've managed to maintain some status of continuing to release top 10 singles, even though mainstream radio listeners probably haven't heard new Dave Matthews music since American Baby cracked the top 20 back in 2005. And the truth of the matter is, Dave Matthews hasn't really been all that hooky for over a decade at this point. He's simply not writing songs with undeniable hooks anymore, songs that get stuck in your head on first listen. Maybe Dave has mellowed out a bit as he's gotten older. I think there's certainly evidence to support that in his lyrics. While the Dave Matthews Band hasn't necessarily written the most biting of social political commentary in their songs in the past, they've at least taken a stand with many of their songs, just in a more polite, unconfrontational way. They've always seemed more interested in message songs that promoted dialogue rather than attempting to craft protest anthems. But on Come Tomorrow, you'd be hard-pressed to find much of anything resembling social commentary. That's a little surprising considering the political climate that we're living in today. In fact, Dave seems almost dismissive of the state of the world. On Black and Blue Bird, he sings, "I read the paper, makes me crazy, there's gotta be a way to make it work." And that's it. It's just as if he shakes his head at the tales of war and of waste and turns right over to the TV page. And later on the title track, Dave seems to pass the buck again, specifically to the next generation. On Come Tomorrow, he sings, "As far as I can see, we should let the children lead the way." He does qualify that idea, though, by saying it's as long as we survive today. Yeah, that's the trick, right? And you know, it's been 6 years since the last Dave Matthews Band album, so you'd think he had some, I don't know, pent-up thoughts or concerns that he'd want to vent about. It turns out, though, he really doesn't have a lot to say. Nothing profound, anyway. Most of these new songs are ruminations on love and family and the kind of, shall we say, ordinary feelings and concerns a man of 51 might be experiencing. Don't get me wrong, though. I think that, to a large degree, those may well be the kind of themes that resonate most strongly with the band's fans. After all, most of them have been maturing, so to speak, right along with Dave. The average DMB listener is most likely a Gen Xer, just like the band themselves. They were in a very different phase in their lives when they fell in love with songs like What Would You Say, Crash Into Me, or Stay, Wasting Time. 20 years later, there's a warm nostalgia to be felt for those songs, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get a babysitter so that you can go see the band in concert and hope to hear those songs again live. While there, you'll revel in the mutual excitement of the masses when you hear the beat of the snare drum announcing the perennial fan favorite, Ants Marching. Maybe it'll remind you of a time years ago when you were more concerned with sneaking weed into the arena than bottled water. So while you won't find any songs that reach those same anthemic heights on Come Tomorrow, you will at least get exactly what you do expect from Dave Matthews Band at this point, which is, to put it simply, a Dave Matthews Band album. Now, for the most part, this is a band that has evolved very little over the course of their 25-year career. They pretty much sound the same as ever. If you put their three most recent albums on shuffle together, you'll hear a remarkable consistency. To a large degree, that's a testament to the talent of the band. These guys are all great musicians, and the sound that they make together is as impressive today as it was in their early days. But as much as their sound stands out, their songs, for the most part, don't. That's not to say that they're bad by any means. They're somewhere in the range of fine to good, occasionally very good. But I think that Come Tomorrow is very similar to the last few albums in that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. As roughly an hour-long song cycle, Come Tomorrow delivers a very satisfactory listening experience. You won't necessarily come away humming any of the songs, but if you're a longtime fan of the band, you'll still come away feeling good. Because for those listeners, this is like comfort food. It's a familiar taste that you always enjoy that evokes a certain sense of sentimentality. Of course, there's no denying the recipe has changed a bit here, and there's some ingredients that are missing. The good news is that since some of these songs have been in development for a number of years, we do still hear the late Leroy Moore on sax on 2 of the tracks, including the album highlight, Can't Stop, a song that's trademark old-school DMB. And then there's violinist Boyd Tinsley, who was fired from the band recently following news of a sexual harassment lawsuit against him. Tinsley appears only on Idea of You, but you'd never really know it by the way he's buried in the mix. In fact, it's Tinsley's absence I feel the most in these songs. Tracks like the Jack Johnson-flavored Do You Remember just beg for a violin solo. There's actually enough of a noticeable musical void in that song that I wondered if he may have indeed played on it, but was later removed. Still, the 2018 version of Dave Matthews Band does remain as faithful as possible to their legacy sound, so to speak, and there are some nice touches scattered throughout the song cycle to keep things fresh. The opening track manages to sound very obviously like U2, while at the same time maintaining a patently DMB vibe, due in no small part to Carter Buford's signature percussion. That's a song called Samurai Cop, by the way, a title that'll have lots of folks scratching their heads. Dave's explanation is that the name comes from a bad movie that they were watching while writing the song. The song's parenthetical subtitle, Oh Joy Begin, makes a bit more sense though. Another song I get a bit of a U2 vibe on is That Girl Is You, particularly on Dave's vocals. His falsetto on the song definitely calls to mind some of Bono's vocals. This song is another album highlight for me. And while I do miss Boyd Tinsley's violin on this album, I do like the fuller string section accompaniment that's used on many of the songs. It adds a nice, lush texture to the music that we haven't seen that much of on the past albums. And finally, I really like When I'm Weary, the album closer that finds Dave accompanied by only piano and a small orchestra. It's a very Coldplay-esque song, no doubt. In fact, it's quite atypical for Dave Matthews Band. It's hardly a band song at all, really, but it is Dave Matthews Band, after all, so I suppose some flexibility is to be forgiven. Not that Come Tomorrow is an album for which fans will need to be forgiving. I don't think there's any significant musical missteps here. The virtual absence of Moore and Tinsley is unfortunate, it's true. But I think the band does a good job of soldiering on. I've mentioned a few of the album's highlights here, but I suppose I should offer the caveat that they're mostly highlights within the context of the album itself, not necessarily within the entire Dave Matthews Band discography. But again, this is a case of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. Individually, these are not the best songs ever to grace a DMB album, but collectively, they still add up to a solid listening experience. It's an album I think most Dave Matthews fans will like, but not love. For the most part, I think it delivers much of what you expect from a DMB album, but not any more than that. So I'm giving Come Tomorrow by Dave Matthews Band an X rating of 6 out of 10. It's a comfort food album that will leave fans feeling mostly satisfied, yet craving a bit more of the original recipe. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Plus, be sure to check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.